Hi, everyone. We are Footprint.ai, and we are really excited to show you what we've been working on for the past few months. So, our goal with our project was to pilot a service using quantitative methods to better understand how language in journalistic stories affects public perception. In the status quo, we currently see no existing solutions to measure the impact of content. So, for example, journalistic articles on a breaking news event, to see how that language impacted public perception and discourse of the event. There are also no tools for reporters to understand how their word choice impacts consequent public discourse of the event. Here enters Footprint. We are a service relying on quantitative methods that measures public perception of news coverage and how journalists cover stories by measuring how the article impacted word associations around a central topic. The two methods we have tested for this project are co-occurrences and word-to-vec. We grounded the testing of our two quantitative methods in a Northwestern sports publication, Inside NU, and its coverage of three sports scandals that happened at Northwestern within the same time period. Our goal was to test if computational methods and the resulting data could prove our hypothesis. In this case, our hypothesis was that the football scandal, which received outsized coverage by Inside NU, would also have had disproportionate impact on public discourse and opinion around Northwestern and Northwestern football.
To implement this idea, we started out by building two web scrapers in Python, one web scraper for collecting all of the article data published by Inside NU from the date of the first story until the date of the start of our project, as well as a second data set for comparison from 2.5 years before. We also built a Twitter web scraper using keyword searches to scrape all tweets mentioning Northwestern and the three sports we investigated on, as well as all tweets tweeted by Inside NU after July 7th, which is the breaking date of the initial football scandal. We analyzed these data sets with two methodologies, the first of which was co-occurrences, which is an algorithm that checks whether or not two keywords exist in the same piece of text, or in our example, if two words are used in the same article or the same tweet. We also used word2vec, which is a algorithm from natural language processing that determines the closeness and usage of two keywords. It's a simpler version of a large language model that's more targeted for our specific use case, and we were able to do this across all of our data.
So to jump into some of the visualizations we created based on this data collection process, let's start with co-occurrences. So we started on the Twitter side of things, and we can see here that with the percent of tweets that included co-occurrences with the words hazing and scandal, football largely outnumbers. So this is important to note because the scraping process did not include the play-by-play tweets for football. It was only tweets with the word football actually in them, and usually play-by-play tweets do not include that word. We thought this was important to note because baseball was out of season, so we wanted to make sure it was a more fair, less skewed process. And volleyball doesn't typically get those kinds of coverage, so we wanted to make sure we were fair with our scraping, and also there are some logistical challenges with getting that scrape done as well. But still, we can see in all of the more administrative team-related tweets that there's a greater percent from Inside NU with that co-occurrence. We also wanted to play around with a few different types of visualizations. So we have another type of layout here, but this is referring to the article co-occurrences. So we looked article by article and looked and saw if those words were pulled out in relation to those sports names. And you can see across the board, there was tremendous growth. We looked at an average of these co-occurrences week by week, and all three sports had growth. However, it is important to note that football had the strongest growth pretty much across the board. And then over on the right, we can refer back to Twitter to track public dialogue. So we have more tweets relating to football and hazing and scandal than other tweets that relate the other two sports to hazing and scandal during this time period.
So this is a racing bar chart we created using Twitter data on word-to-vec associations around the central term Northwestern, which contribute to our overall goal of evaluating public discourse. You can see how the relative ranking of those keywords change over time and the change in general association as shown in the numerical values. One of the key insights we gained from this graph is on July 24th, which is the releasing day of the volleyball scandal led by Inside NU. You can clearly see how the reporting suddenly raised the word association value of keywords association with the entire series of sports scandals on public perception of Northwestern as a school in general. And some of the close associations specifically on words like allegation and lawsuits.
So more word to vec visualizations this time. Now we're going to look at the articles. So we can see that misconduct and scandal were actually not used in association with these sports prior to the July 7th date. So we see growth across all of the terms. I do want to note that the y-axis scaling is different. So you can actually see really big growth when you look at the after time period. But football, you might notice the values look a little bit lower relative to other sports. And there are a couple of things that might explain that. But one thing to help clarify this visualization is looking at the percent increase in value from before and after. So for pretty much all these terms, football had over a 100% increase in its word to vec value. And I also want to note that hazing, allegation, and lawsuit, or hazing and allegation specifically, had way over a 100% increase that is unparalleled to the other two sports. And lawsuit as well had a huge spike. And this is a nice visualization to show why we might also be seeing those differences. With the disparity in football. Football had more article coverage. And as I mentioned earlier, with tweets, we excluded certain play-by-play tweets. With football, though, it's a little bit harder in the article sense to track if an article was specific to an event or it was relating to the team and the administration, which is important to consider because volleyball, as Inside and you told us, gets less coverage, and then baseball is simply out of season. So that could affect the actual value. And in terms of measurements of success, we worked with Inside NU and presented our findings just to show them that there were stronger associations with football and these target terms, more so than the other two sports in the same time period. And I think this is important to note because Inside NU is a student publication. While it is now owned by SB Nation, it does spark important conversations about if a student publication has specific obligations to cover certain sports and treat language similarly between those sports more equitably than, say, a mainstream publication that cares more about ad revenue. So I think that sparks some conversations for down the line. And then we shared these insights with Inside NU and also got feedback from them because this is an iterative process to inform our future decision making, but we also wanted them to think about their language more consciously as they cover different sports.
So moving forward, we want to ground our algorithm into a service that can be applied to two use cases. The first one is for past investigations, just like the one we did with Inside NU on the sports scandals at Northwestern. We're taking in data from web scraping and Twitter scraping and be able to identify keywords impacting public discourses to inform the journalists about their language usage. And we also provided insights on future resource allocation on essentially solving the question like what to report. And the second use cases that can be used is for real-time monitoring. In this case, we're planning to take in the draft of article as well as real-time tweets grabbed from Twitter API. And we essentially want our algorithm to function as an impact predictor based on historical data and essentially provide a real-time out-of-platform discussion monitor.
So overall, we were able to successfully test two quantitative methods as part of our service that can now be applied to a wide range of newsrooms and specific stories. We leveraged NLP to provide insight on how an article's language impacts public perception and discourse. Newsrooms can now monitor public discourse and keywords in their content impacting public perception, which increases their awareness on internal biases that affect their language and the consequent impact of that on public perception and discourse around the given topic. Thank you.